Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today, finally, we're going to be talking about the newest album from Imogen Heap, titled Sparks. You know, the more you think about it, the more you realize just how much indie pop in the modern era owes to Imogen Heap. And believe me, you wouldn't have thought that, especially when you look at the very odd arc of her career. Starting in the late 90s with I, Megaphone, Imogen Heap stepped into the indie scene with an album blending fuzz-saturated alt-rock with gorgeously, surprisingly intricate keyboard melodies and a breathy voice that proved incredibly versatile and emotionally compelling. And while on reflection, that record is so painfully 90s, Imogen Heap's talent does shine through, and what would be a sign that her opulent, genre-bending sophomore release in 2005 might be worth the wait. And oh dear God, it was. Let me make this clear. I, Megaphone is a decent album. Speak for Yourself is a goddamn masterpiece. That's one of the best albums of the 2000s, hands down. If you're looking for albums that would be close in my books to a perfect 10, that's one of them. Raw, uncomfortably intimate, overloaded with memorable melodies and genre-bending production, with Imogen Heap all did herself without a record label and nearly went bankrupt for the trouble. That album is the sort of desperately small-scale conceptual record that sounds so much bigger and more meaningful than it really should be, and yet it then goes and earns all of that drama. The fact that it managed to be as cohesive, emotional, and incredibly catchy won Imogen Heap critical acclaim, but real popularity would come when the ghostly auto-tuned and absolutely gorgeous song Hide and Seek was used on the OC, and then sampled by Jason Derulo on one of the worst hit songs of 2009 and possibly the decade in What You Say. But you know what? By that point, Imogen Heap was moving on to her newest project, Ellipse, which came out in 2009 and some mostly middling reviews. Critics and fans, including myself, were initially baffled. It wasn't like Ellipse was a bad album overstuffed with the same rich plethora of musical ideas that form Speak for Yourself, so why wasn't it as good? Well, after a few re-listens, that answer came pretty easily apparent. The drama and the emotional intensity that defined Speak for Yourself was downplayed somewhat on Ellipse, and it made the instrumental flourishes and very flowery lyrics appear a lot less gripping and a lot more indulgent. And the more I heard about the development of Imogen Heap's newest album, Sparks, the more I was concerned that that same indulgence might crop up again. Now, sure, the music would undoubtedly be pretty, beautiful even, I expected that, but would there be that same emotional intensity that drove her sophomore release, especially after a recording process that took a lot longer and featured instruments Imogen Heap helped design herself, and all manner of art campaigns accompanying the many singles released over the past 3 years? Would that all come together? But you know what? Imogen Heap has earned a ton of goodwill with me, so I made sure to dive really deep into Sparks. Do we have another masterpiece? Well, not quite, but it's still damn great. The odd thing with this album is that, well, it's not really a conventional record when it comes to overarching themes or a narrative, mostly thanks to its extended globe-trotting composition. And while it is truly incredible that this album manages to feel as cohesive as it does, it also means that this album probably works a little bit better in pieces than it does as an overall whole. Either way, it's definitely something that you all need to go out and get, because in terms of indie pop music released this year, nothing quite sounds like Imogen Heap, and that is saying something. Now, granted, that's been true for years now, so it starts with Imogen Heap's voice herself. Her voice has always been one of her strongest assets in crafting the sound, either through multi-tracking, shockingly close, almost uncomfortably close intimacy, and all brands of vocal effects that still somehow manage to preserve her organic sound. Part of this is just her masterful production. Where this album really does shine through is that Imogen Heap, she sounds invested again in telling these stories, and she's got the emotional versatility and conviction to back it up. And while I wouldn't quite say she's as raw and exposed as she's been in the past, you can tell that she is as committed to the dramatic presentation as anyone, and that's a great thing to see. And of course, if you're a fan of her harmonic arrangements, she delivers in spades on songs like The Listening Chair. It really comes together here, and it helps that the instrumentation and the production are along for the ride. I have always loved Imogen Heap's brand of production, spacious yet intimate, constructed and yet stunningly organic and natural, and she's at her most lush and gorgeous here, fusing electronic elements with richly textured organic instrumentation. The shimmering keyboards balancing against the very thick beat of You Know Where to Find Me, the absolutely gorgeous strings and piano arrangements against the Indian-inspired beats of Psycho Song, Minds Without Fear, and Climb to Saktang. The sweeping, echoing presence of Neglected Space that begins half-spoken word piece before bringing in the strings and keyboard for that climax. The gleaming and rich tones of Me the Machine, I just really love there. The brittle snaps against the heartbreakingly dreary piano of Telemiscommunications. The folk-inspired crackling darkness of the Beast. The incredible binaural display of sound effects filling propeller seats. You won't hear a song like that this year. And, of course, the shockingly strong and potent groove of Lifeline. That might be one of the best songs that Imogen Heap has ever written, as you probably all know if you heard it back in 2011 when it was released. Now, there are a few moments that don't quite stick the landing as effectively. The synths on runtime strike me as a little bit chintzy and lacking in texture for Imogen Heap, and Cheesy She Knows feels a little bit overstuffed, but overall, the sheer breadth and blend of sounds that Imogen Heap brings to the table is startling, and it's even all the more incredible that she makes the flow of this album feel as cohesive as it does. That's incredible production work. And now we get to the lyrics, where honestly, the critics of Imogen Heap have made the strongest points, in that she writes very flowery, very descriptive songs that can feel a little bit light on deeper meaning and can come across a little shallow. But you know what, given some of the free-flowing nature of some of these songs, that criticism could have some validity if you don't see the bigger picture. Both the songs themselves, which are their own little individual short stories, and as the record as a whole. Now sure, The Listening Chair is a song that's filled with offbeat references and elements that feel like a random jumble of everything that Imogen Heap has ever liked across her entire life, until you realize that's the point. It's a collection of experiences and facts that she used to define herself, and she's now staring out across the emptiness from that listening chair and wondering that who she really is right now. And while space and emptiness might be one of the main running motifs of this record, there's a reason that it's called Sparks. Tiny embers of feeling that can gently caress on songs like Entanglement, or scorch on the brutal troubled relationship song The Beast, or even streak across the sky like bolts of lightning on Minds Without Fear. The drive to attain that spark of feeling energizes on Me the Machine, or reinvigorates on You Know Where to Find Me, even as the latter song shows that such a revitalization will come with a cost. After all, a little spark needs a little bit of coaxing to become a real true flame. But where this record highlights that broader emptiness and shows just how fragile those sparks are is where it develops some real powerful emotional heft. I've already mentioned The Listening Chair, but then you have Neglected Space, where Imogen Heap sings from the perspective of the neglected space itself, anthropomorphizing it and showing how it yearns for that spark of life. And then there's the heartbreaking Telemiscommunications with Deadmau5, showing how we strive to hold on to those sparks that can flicker and fade without very real human contact. But this album really develops some incredible power when it freezes that moment when the sparks ignite. Lifeline is an incredible snapshot of how we react when faced with something implacable beyond our scale of mind. A desperate moment when we seize onto whatever we can in order to push our way through and make sense to stay sane. And then there's the album closer, Propeller Seeds, where in the moment she encounters someone special and feels rooted to the spot as the sheer wealth of infinite possibilities just presents itself. She doesn't know where that story will end up going, but such a small spark could create such a vast potential. Shows just how powerful those sparks of feeling, those sparks of emotion really can be. In other words, if you can't tell, I really do like this album. It's stunningly cohesive and powerful, and while I do feel that some of the instrumental experimentation doesn't always stick the landing, and I do feel that this album's single release process has kind of blunted some of the impact 3 years later, Imogen Heap's Sparks is still very powerful. I'm not quite sure it'll ever match the drama of Speak For Yourself, which means I'm going to give this album a very strong 8 out of 10, but this record still deserves to be seen as one of the most engaging and emotionally evocative albums of the year. This album is highly recommended, if only to share some of those beautiful sparks with all of you. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. If there's anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, or any other albums coming out that you want me to take a look at, I'd be more than happy to give them a listen. Just remember, if there's an album that's going to be really popular in the pop scene, I'm likely going to cover it, so you don't have to keep requesting those. And I don't cover greatest hits albums either. Those are just compilations. They don't tend to work very well. In other words, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.